Thanks for taking the time to download this BBC Radio 5 Live podcast. To search for other podcasts you might like, click bbc.co.uk/5 Live, where you'll also find our terms of use.
Good evening, Monday Night Club tonight on 5 Live Sport. And the Monday Night Club this evening comprises Michael Owen, Robbie Savage and Ian McGarry. Plenty of stuff to talk about. 85058 is the text number as usual. If you tweet us, just use hashtag MNC or at BBC5Live, but hashtag MNC. We will start with Rafael Benitez, and his new role as interim Chelsea manager began with a goalless draw at home to Manchester City. His arrival hasn't gone down well with the fans, who chanted Juan Di Matteo and booed him loudly when he stepped into the dugout. After the game, he told the BBC's Jonathan Pearce that he didn't notice the dissent from the stands.
They were asking me before, but I was concentrated on the game, so I know that will be a question of time to keep doing things as a professional, try to win games, and I think that the fans, they will realise that I will try to do my best for the team, for the club.
Because there's been ill feeling in the past, or is that just part of the game, what happened before?
Yeah, I think that we had these games at the maximum level always is something that you can understand, but again I will say I will try to do my best, and I am quite focused and ready for the next challenge. Will be the next game.
Rafael Benitez talking to Jonathan Pearce. If you're a Chelsea fan and were there yesterday and you booed, then text us 85058. 85058, that's right. And tweet us hashtag MNC. Tell us why you booed. Robbie, were you shocked at the Chelsea fans' reaction?
I think if they want to vent their anger, they vent at the wrong guy. It's not Rafa Benitez's fault that Di Matteo got sacked after winning the Champions League. It's one of the best jobs in the world to have if you're a football manager. Yes, it's volatile. Yes, you can get sacked after winning the Champions League, but I think he turned it down before, or was offered it before and didn't take it. He's took it now. He's bided his time, and it's not his fault. The fans are going to get behind the team, behind the manager, if they want success, because they still mathematically can qualify in the Champions League. They can still win the league. I think first and foremost, Di Matteo should still be the manager, personally. But I just think that Abramovich wants the Barcelona style play, and I think personally, no matter how well Rafa does, if Guardiola's still available, he'll go for him.
Can you understand, Michael, how the fans reacted at Stamford Bridge yesterday?
Well, I think you can understand because of what's happened in the past, but I think a manager, a players, it's no different from a fan's point of view. There are two different points of view. From a player's point of view, I felt it myself. I've played for arch rivals in Liverpool and Manchester United, and you cannot explain what the feeling you get. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's a job, and he's got to earn
a living.
Well, earn a living is one thing. I mean, he's obviously probably set up for the rest of his life, but if he's got anything about him, which he has, then he wants to be the top of his profession. He wants to win the Champions League and the league and do it again and again, and that's the driving force for players, for managers. So there's definitely a different perspective from fans to managers and players.
Do you think he will have sat there and deliberated for a while whether to take that job, given the relationship that he had with Chelsea when he was Liverpool manager? Before you signed for Manchester United, did you think, hang on a minute, this could be very difficult? The reaction I could get from both Liverpool and Manchester could be very awkward. Yeah,
you do. It does cross your mind, but it's probably a little bit down the pecking order of what you want out of your career. Fans only support one team for 70, 80, 90 years or however long they live. A footballer gets one shot at it. If I didn't go to Manchester United, then I'd be playing, lower down the league for them years. So,
for Stoke.
Robbie's only been with us 8 minutes. Don't start already. Yeah.
and I wouldn't have swapped it for anything. I mean, I had 3 fantastic years. So yes, it's going to disappoint a few people, but yes, I've got a life to live as well, and I've got a career to have as well, and I want to fulfil, all my dreams in my career.
I will talk to you in a minute, Ian. I promise. But you had a similar thing. You must have wondered before you went to Derby, didn't you? Given your relationship with Derby fans in your days at Leicester.
Of course, but at my age, when Derby were offering me a significant deal, I had no option really. I had to look after myself and my family. And I thought to myself, I'll win the Derby fans over with my performance.
I mean, did you think before your first appearance in a Derby shirt, I could get hammered here by these fans?
I was in the car driving with my missus and my kids, and I was petrified. But the Derby fans were great with me. They gave me standing ovation. But then it went sour. Obviously, my performances dipped. I was getting booed when my name was right on the team sheet. But I just kept strong. I thought, I'll win them over. And I seen what Roberto Mancini said, win, win, win. And if he wins games, fans are fickle. And when he was Liverpool manager, playing against Chelsea, he's going to stick up for his own Liverpool team. That's in the past, So
I think as well that people think that it's only certain types that would play for a different team, or Michael Owen or Rafa Benitez or whoever, they mustn't have a certain passion or a certain loyalty and all this rubbish. I mean, I can tell you the most people or players that are on everyone's lips that everyone thinks, cool, he's stayed at a club for all his career, so he must be the loyalist of the most loyal of them all. I mean, I can tell you next minute they would go if they weren't playing in the team regularly or a bigger job came or something like that. I mean, it's laughable what you hear sometimes.
Because for all of these guys, it's a job, isn't it? It's a career, and it's trying to do the best with your career that you can. As far as the Chelsea fans are concerned, you and me are football fans rather than ex-pros or managers or whatever, and therefore we have only the one club, and we are loyal and passionate to that club. Robbie's point's quite interesting about the Chelsea fans, isn't it? They booed Benitez when he came out, and they chanted for Di Matteo, but unless my ears mistook me yesterday, there was nothing anti-Abramovich.
No, because I think Chelsea fans, and especially the ones who've lived through the Abramovich era, will always hold him in the highest regard for the fact that he effectively, the night before that Liverpool-Chelsea game in 2001, the then chief executive of Chelsea told the players, if you don't get in the Champions League tomorrow, if you lose to Liverpool, then the club will go out of business. And then the next thing you know, some guy's punting in 500 million quid and buying every player that's going. So Chelsea fans won't boo Abramovich, then they never will. And if they did, then something bad might happen to them anyway. So you have to be careful.
You are joking there, obviously.
Yes, of course. Anyway, I'll say this, though. To answer your question, would Benitez thought twice about it? No, he wouldn't. He's been soliciting for this job for more than a year. He was actually offered the job before Robbie Di Matteo was offered the chance to take over as caretaker.
Oh, you mentioned season. That a year ago on the
but he got greedy at the last minute and asked for an extra year plus the rest of that season. And they said no, because we want to try and bring in someone else in the summer. We're not going to pay you off just for the sake of it. So he's literally been canvassing for this job, and his representatives have been canvassing for this job. There's nothing in him which is saying, I don't think I can go to Chelsea and take the fans on and win them over. Nor does he think, I don't want to protect my legacy at Liverpool because Liverpool fans might be upset at the fact that I've gone to Chelsea. He's interested in Rafa Benitez. That's only himself. He's not worked since 2010, since making a real mess of Inter Milan, and he needed this job. And Chelsea,
but as we've discovered, he's not unique in that situation of considering himself, putting himself forward.
Well, when Robbie said I had to do what's best for me and my family, I absolutely take that on board. That Robbie did literally have to do what was best for him and his family. The payoffs that Rafa Benitez got from Liverpool and from Inter Milan, he doesn't have to work again. He's doing this for his own career, a lot for his own ego. Have you seen his website?
He's managing Chelsea. You can't blame him.
No, I'm not blaming him at all. No, I'm not even criticising him for it. I'm just saying he didn't think twice. Mark asked the original question: would you think twice about him doing it? No, he didn't think twice because he's been after this job for a long time. And so he has to take. I have to say, I was in the press conference afterwards when he talked about the fans, and I think he was disrespectful and patronising to the Chelsea fans by saying that he didn't understand what they said. You could understand the Liverpool fans singing his name easy enough, and what the significance of what You'll Never Walk Alone was, and yet Chelsea fans shouting boo and go away Rafa, suddenly he can't understand it. That's just patronising. And he'd been much better to just face it up and say, I understand their passion for their club and for the reason that they're doing this because of what I did in the past, what I said in the past. However, it's my determination to win them over. Rather than giving this sort of nonsense about, I didn't understand or I didn't hear because I was focusing, and It's just pathetic.
Let me read you some texts and tweets from people. Andy, Chelsea fans, grow up. It isn't Rafa Benitez's fault. Any manager would take the Chelsea job if they were offered it. Why is it his fault? Blame Abramovich. Simon, if Chelsea fans are so angry about Di Matteo's dismissal, it would be nice if they had the courage to take on the owner directly rather than the manager. Nick in Newton Abbot. Come on, fellow Chelsea fans, get behind the new manager. We're better than this. We'll only start winning again if we are all together. If you want to point the finger, Roman sacked Di Matteo and appointed Benitez. And Dave says, who's in Liverpool, and I'm assuming is a Liverpool fan, therefore, Rafa Benitez has far too much class for a club like Chelsea. The club and its fans deserve each other, not Rafa. Let's talk about one of the main tactical things from yesterday's game, shall we, which was Fernando Torres and how Chelsea can get the best out of him. One of the many things that people say is that Rafa Benitez was brought in to help him rediscover his form. Is that possible, Robbie?
The best they can get out of him is sell him for as much as they can, because I think he's gone. I watched him yesterday closely. Yes, he was world class, and we've got world class striker here. He was world class, no doubt about it. Them years for Liverpool, Atletico Madrid, his performances for Spain, world class. But there's arguments to say the last 6 months of his Liverpool career, he wasn't the same. And I like Torres, and he's one of them players you're willing on. Yesterday I was watching him closely, and I was saying, go on, but it's when it's going to happen. I don't think it's ever going to happen again. It looks like he's running in sand at times. You know, he can't go past anybody. He's running alongside people. That extra yard of pace, he hasn't got it. The ball up to him yesterday was in the air a lot of the times. But you know, when he used to run in between the centre half and the right back, them runs he used to make, he doesn't make them that much anymore. His first touch is not there. I don't think it's a confidence thing. It might be, Michael have an opinion, but I think it's a physical thing with Fernando Torres now.
Would you confidence or physical?
Well, I tried to look back in his career, because I don't think anyone can say that he's not a different player now to when he was at Liverpool. I mean, he was just unbelievable at Liverpool. He was top class. And he's certainly not been the same in the last year or so at Liverpool and you know, at Chelsea. You do see it in fits and starts. He does a couple of things. You think, oh, you know, that might spark the old flame in many ways. But yeah, I'm looking at his career and thinking, was there a major injury, or did he not come back from something? And it's hard to see. He did have a small operation on his knee prior to the European Championships, and he's had a couple of little hamstring problems, but there's nothing major that you think, cool, he's not been the same since then. So that leads you to think that maybe it is a confidence thing, but confidence normally comes and goes, and you know, it takes a month maybe or whatever it is, and then you spark back into life, and it's been a long process, and you know, it's very hard to put your finger on it, and I'd agree. I think bringing Rafa Benitez in or Torres being there was certainly a major factor in Benitez coming back.
But physically, as you get older, and as your game has to change to cope with your body changing and maybe pace decreasing or strength increasing, because that happens as you grow older, you have to adapt. Does he look capable of adapting?
Well, he's still playing a similar type of game than he always did. I mean, if I can only speak from my personal experience, and injuries cost me a lot of my pace over time, and I've had to adapt now, and I play a totally different game to the game that I did at 18. I look around the Premier League, and it's exactly the same with many players. I mean, the Scholes's of this world. He used to be a midfielder that scored 20 goals a season, bombing on, attacking, and now he's one of the best sort of sitting midfielders that sprays the ball around. Ryan Giggs the same, flying winger. Now he plays a bit more in the centre because he loses a yard of pace. There's nothing wrong with that. We all get old and we all have to adapt in many ways, and maybe Torres might have to chop and change his game a little bit to again reinvent himself.
But how can the thing is, from a striking point of view, Michael, how can he change it? If I think about you had that electric pace, you'd play on the shore, you'd get him behind. For me, he can't do it anymore. Can he be like a Mark Hughes figure where the ball's played up to him, he holds people off, brings people into play? Can he win headers? I don't know how he can adapt his game.
No, and I'm not suggesting for 1 minute there is a certain way that he should adapt it if he can adapt it at all. Not everybody can. And I think one of the hardest things in the world is to be a top player and then stay at the top for so many years. like a Scholes and a Giggs that I've just mentioned that have adapted the game and to still be playing at the top level. It's not easy. And, many people have got one sort of shot at it, and once they're losing a yard of pace or get a bad injury, then it's very hard to recover. And
then teams, of course, have to adapt to that player as well as the player adapting. His fellow players have to. There were two things yesterday. I mean, I thought in the first half he made some decent runs. He pulled himself out wide, and yet the ball never went to him. And when the ball was played to him, it was pinged at his head, and Vincent Kompany won every header that he faced with him. And it was as if they'd heard, or they'd not heard, but Rafa Benitez told them one of the successful ways he scored goals for Liverpool was with long balls from Steven Gerrard. And they tried to hit the long balls, but maybe didn't have the quality to find them.
Well, they don't, because in Ramirez and Mikel, you don't have players who can see. They don't have the vision to see the pass and then to execute it. Steven Gerrard and Xabi Alonso were incredibly good at that for Fernando Torres when he was on his hot form of scoring for Liverpool in the first 2 years he was there. They actually trained with Oscar playing in beside Mikel before the Manchester City game, because on evidence just now with Lampard out injured, he's the only one who can actually hit the 40-50 yard pass. He's got the vision and he's probably got the ability to do it. But what you do is you bypass Chelsea's three most creative players by doing that. So what's the point in paying £82 million for Hazard, Mata and Oscar if you're just going to knock the ball over the top to Torres? And this is the real sort of, where are Chelsea going with this? Abramovich has been desperate to bring a much more open, much more technically gifted style of play to Chelsea because he was bored of win-win, bore. So just as he gets the players and the team are playing that way, he sacks the manager and brings in Rafa Benitez, who we saw in microcosm against Manchester City yesterday, how Rafa sets his teams up. The full-backs pushed on to take the space out in front. The centre-backs played very tight, close to each other. Mata, who, against Manchester United, had 147 touches all across the United's back four. Had 123 touches all on the right touchline yesterday because he was playing as an auxiliary right wing-back, to make sure that no one got in behind Chelsea in terms of Aguero and Dzeko. Now, it's a 0-0 draw, but there's none of the flair. There are no goals. If everything has to be played towards Torres, then this is a guy who scored 7 Premier League goals in 85 appearances or something.
I'm not sure in 2 days Rafa Benitez can have that much presence on that team in 2 days.
First clean sheet in 5.
Yeah, but I don't think. You're saying that
you saying to me that was the same Chelsea, that played against Manchester City.
I think for 2 days in there, it's hard to get your methods across in 2 days. Personally, what Michael thinks. Personally, I think for 2 days,
I thought we saw different Chelsea.
You go on that pitch, and 2 days is such a short space of time to get your methods across.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking. I worked with Rafa Benitez for a couple of months before I left for Real Madrid, and there's no doubt the man's got something about him. He's a fantastic tactician, and his record speaks for himself at certain clubs, certainly Valencia, and obviously winning what he did at Liverpool as well. But I go along with what Robbie said earlier. I think, if reports are to be believed, he's desperate for Pep Guardiola, the chairman, Roman Abramovich. The stepping stone to get there, or is it a stopgap to get there? It's almost chalk and cheese. Rafa Benitez is a real defensive minded, get your team shape, hard to beat, hard to pass. I mean, we played when I was at Liverpool. We played against his Valencia team. I've never come into a dressing room after and looked at so many blank faces in our team and thought, how do you string a pass together? The defence was saying to the midfield, we can't pass to you, and I couldn't find a space, and the midfielder couldn't pass to us, and it was just impossible to play his team. Lo and behold, a few months later, he's our manager, and as I say, I just don't know where Chelsea are going, really. If they're trying to get to Pep Guardiola as an end game, I think that, as I say, chalk and cheese, really. Benitez.
It's a shore-up job just now, Michael. That's why he's only been given the contract to the end of the season. But, your point's correct. The thing is, I don't think anyone in football at the level of knowledge, if you like, thinks that Guardiola is going to go to Chelsea. Not for all the money that Real Madrid can offer him. He's not going to go there. So Benitez thinks he's got an audition for the big job, for the big contract. But playing that kind of football that's not how he's going to land himself the job.
So you're saying Guardiola will not be at Chelsea?
Yeah.
Ever?
Not next season.
Ever?
Well, Do you want me to tell you how long a piece of string is?
So do you think Guardiola? Do you think Guardiola will be one day manager Chelsea?
Not under the current regime. Is that what you're saying?
Not under the current regime. When he sacked. Well, this is his 9th manager in 9 years.
We're going to come back on to managers and their longevity a little bit later on. And I asked Chelsea fans this yesterday, and they weren't not necessarily able to give a definitive answer. But given we've said that the Benitez system, combined with the array of attacking talent that Chelsea have, combined with Torres, isn't necessarily a match made in heaven, is there one player in that Chelsea team that Benitez should build Chelsea round?
Mata
for you?
I'd buy in January. I think they lack in the middle of the park Mikel, or I think Ramirez good. I think Mikel's the weakness. So I think I'd buy somebody as the way Benitez plays, dominating midfielder. And listen, if you've got all the funds in the world, Falcao.
Right.
But that's 2.
Okay, I'll give you that. Michael?
Yeah, I would build a team around Mata as well. I think he's a top player. He'd be mine. And again, with what Robbie says, just touching on Falcao, I think there's a lot of teams in Europe that are going to be after him. I've watched him half a dozen times and just so impressed. He's as good as I've seen for a long time.
But interestingly, Michael, he plays in a system the way that Chelsea have been playing, with Torres up front,
exactly.
with 3 attacking creative players behind him. If Chelsea had Falcao instead of Torres, they'd probably be like 20 points clear at the top of the Premier League just now, because they're scoring goals for fun.
He's the modern day striker.
20 points clear.
Right, you two argue with the mics down. 85058 on the text. If you tweet us, use hashtag MNC. Paul in Glasgow. It isn't just that some players have 2 or 3 great seasons in their whole career. He had his at Liverpool, that's all. There are a lot of players who live off 2 or 3 seasons and never get it back. Only a few top players, Henrik Larsson, Ryan Giggs, spring to mind as guys who do it for 10 or 11 seasons in a row. Tim in Lewes, I booed at Stamford Bridge yesterday. It was against the whole situation, not just the fact that we hired someone who criticised us. It will ease off. Robin says, Rafa has a history of disrespecting my club. I don't like the man, and I have every right to make my feelings known. I am waiting for his apology. As regards Di Matteo, he was responsible for one of the happiest evenings of my life, so I wanted to praise him. And Andy in Manchester, from a football fan's point of view, I can totally understand the Chelsea supporters. He insulted them and their team. He was a hate figure for them whilst at Liverpool. There's no way they would criticise the owner if they wanted to. If he left, that would be the end of Chelsea. Keep the text coming, 85058. If you tweet us, hashtag MNC.
The 5 Live Football Daily Podcast. All the day's football news sent direct to your computer. Podcast it now at bbc.co.uk/5live.
On the Monday Night Club tonight, it's Ian McGarry, Robbie Savage and the freshly shaved Michael Owen. Where's it gone?
Well, I had to do filming for a TV programme yesterday.
You can say what TV programme you
Family
filmed.
Fortunes. Yeah. And it's not getting aired until the new year, so they couldn't have me in with the tash. So I've had to. It was all agreed with the Stoke lads before I did it that I'd grow it until the 25th.
And what was the?
What does the survey say?
Have you stuffed a really big pillow with it?
Yeah.
What was the general reaction to your moustache? Would you say?
Well, I think it created a bit of noise, to be honest. I thought it was it was one of them, yeah. It was quite gross, I thought, but it raised plenty of awareness, which is the main thing.
It certainly is. You're just always like that, aren't you?
Yeah.
Stubbly,
always
really.
scruffy.
Always scruffy.
I am scruffy.
Right, let's go back to the football, shall we? Harry Redknapp has been speaking to the media today ahead of his first proper game as QPR manager. Redknapp says performances need to improve quickly.
We've got to do better to give ourselves any chance of getting out of this mess. But it's going to be tough. But we've all got to work hard. It's going to be full on for everybody. If they're not willing to work hard, then they're not going to play. I need people that are going to work. When they lose the ball, chase it. It's what you learnt when you was at school. It's what you did in the playground. You chased after the ball. If you lost it, you worked. You ran about. And that's what I need. I need 11 people with their ability to put effort in. And if they give that effort, then we've got a chance of surviving. If they don't, they're not going to play to start with, and I'll find 11 who will run about and work hard. That's all I can do.
He's not saying, I suppose, Michael, anything that we didn't already know. I mean, their game against Stoke 2 or 3 weeks ago, they played some decent stuff, but any mistake or any error, they had shrugs, hands up in the air, hands on hips. they didn't look particularly happy with each other in that game.
No, I mean, and that's partly due to losing games. I mean, the frustration mounts, and the more on edge you become, the more you start falling out with your teammates and everything else. So, I mean, I think QPR have made an absolutely perfect appointment there. They have got some good players. I'm not going to say the Premier League lies, because they have been poor this year. I think it's only 4 points they've got. I mean, it's a poor return, but they have got some good players. I do expect them to climb the table under Harry Redknapp, and I'm confident he can get them out of it.
They have got some good players. They have temperamental players as well.
Well, interesting to see what Harry really said about he needs 11 players who can run round and put a shift in. I'm not sure Mark Hughes bought them type of players. I thought what was missing in Mark Hughes' team. What is a Mark Hughes team? It's a team of effort, grit, determination. You put your body on the line for your teammate. And I think Mark Hughes bought the type of player for the future, and they weren't ready now. Because I think he had a long-term plan, an objective for maybe 2 or 3 years. I think he was looking to the future a bit too much than buying now. He was waiting for the likes of Diakate and Bia, Granero to maybe in 15 games get used to the Premier League, and they haven't, and they're not used to it. And inevitably, because them players Mark Hughes brought in a lot at once haven't acquitted themselves to the Premier League quickly, that's why Mark Hughes has found himself a job. I think Mark Hughes, like when he was at City, he laid the foundations. He had a lot to change about. People know I'm close to Mark Hughes. He had a lot to do when he went in there. The academy, everything. He's done a lot for that football club in such a short space of time, and somebody else is going to reap the rewards of his hard work, like at Man City when he went there. Inevitably, Man City were going to win the Premier League if Mark Hughes was there or not. They did, because of the money. QPR will be a successful Premier League team, top 10 possibly in the future, because of the money and the type of player they can bring in.
I don't think he lost his job, Robbie, specifically.
Results dictated.
What I was going to say is the QPR are living a terrible nightmare all over again here. They escaped on the last day of the season courtesy of other
He kept them up. Hang on. They're running. Everybody said with about 8 games left, they're down. They got no chance. They had Liverpool, Chelsea, they had Arsenal.
They finished in a lower position.
He kept them up.
Than when they sacked Warnock. How did he keep them up?
He kept them in the Premier League. Are they playing the Premier League today?
When they sacked Neil Warnock, they were in 14th place. When Mark Hughes...
Listen, I think Mark Hughes' objective, when he went there, he kept them up. And I think Mark Hughes,
right.
Because the time of player he
Mark Hughes' opinion from a mate for a second.
You put it on me, I'm carrying on here. Mark Hughes, right, was taken in there to make QPR. He said they'd never be in that position ever again. That's what he said, didn't he? When Neil Warnock was manager. And they were bottom of the league with 4 points. I thought they played well in games, didn't get results, didn't get one off their backside. They went to Arsenal, they played well. They could have beat Stoke. There was games in the season where they've played well. The performance against Southampton was diabolical. And I think that's what inevitably cost him his job. But I think, people say the players weren't behind him. Well, they were 100% behind him, because I know for a fact most players were 100% behind him.
The discussion of the clip from Harry there saying players who are going to put the shift in are going to run around, which is a little bit discourteous, because they'll do more than just run around, won't they? But those players with a bit of oomph in them, as we would say, who can grab the game by the scruff of the neck, were brought back in at Old Trafford. Mark Bowen brought in Sean Derry and Clint Hill and Jamie Mackie. Now, does that imply that Mark Bowen was saying to Mark Hughes, we need to bring them in, and Mark Hughes...
No,
I know. Tell me how to read that situation.
I know on the Monday or the Tuesday, when Mark Hughes felt that he'd be taking the team at the weekend, that was going to be his team. So that was a Mark Hughes team that went to Old Trafford, because he was going to put Mackie, he was going to put Derry, he was going to put Hill back in, because he thought, do you know what? We need to go back now to them players who have got that bit of grit and determination. Maybe I've read it wrong. And to be fair, for 60 minutes, Old Trafford, they were fantastic. But inevitably, Ian, you're right, Mark Hughes, 4 points, Michael's right. Bottom of the league, he hasn't got the time.
No, my point I was trying to make, Robbie, wasn't that Mark Hughes lost his job because they're sitting with 4 points and no wins this season. Because the owners have looked at it and thought, hang on, we gave him our faith in the January transfer window, we ended up escaping on the last day because other people's results went our way. We then brought in more players than any other single Premier League club to assist his vision, to make the team he wanted, and now we find ourselves right back where we were at the end of last season, in bottom place, 4 points, no wins. And they said, right, we have to do something to change this. So what I'm saying is, he didn't lose his job because he bought the wrong players or because he didn't adapt to the Premier League. It's because he didn't perform well enough at the end of last season, and then the same cycle of defeat has happened this season. And they've basically looked at it and thought, this guy's not got it.
The end of last season.
And do you know what? He hasn't got it.
Can we just get his stats from the end of last season? Can somebody get the stats from last season, the last 10 games?
Right, okay, we'll do that. Let's try and look ahead to what Harry Redknapp has to do. Given the fact that they have so many players, Michael Owen, do you think that Harry Redknapp is going to be able to bring players in? And if not, will he be able to do enough, along with his coaching staff, with that group of players that are there?
Yeah, I think both. I think he'll be able to do better. I think just a fresh face, a reputation. The players will know that he's got a reputation of turning things around at clubs, and it'll just be a feel-good factor before he even walks in the dressing room. And secondly, yeah, I think the owners have got money, so they're going to let him spend it. I mean, I know he's come in and said that they've paid a lot of money and spent a lot of money, so most of the job's done, but he'll want to put his little stamp on the team as well, and I'm pretty certain that he'll buy 2 or 3 players in the next window.
One name mentioned today and put to Harry Redknapp was David Beckham. This was his response.
I got a lovely text from David the other night, not talking about himself coming, just wishing me all the best here, but he's a top professional, but I've never discussed the possibility of him coming. I mean, I still think to have him at any football club he'd be a great influence on the team, on the club. He's such a great pro and a top class man as well. But I've never discussed anything. I've not discussed players with the chairman at all at the moment. I've got the players we've got here. We've got a group here. There's loads of ability here. We've got to get the best out of this group now. What happens in January is way off. We need some points between now and then.
Do you think he'll be able to bring people in?
Yeah, I think there'll be a degree of elasticity about the budget. I mean, there might be loan signings. I think he'll take a good look at the players that are there just now, and I think he'll probably be more worried about getting people out than people in, because, and I don't know, Robbie and Michael know better than me, but if you've got a dressing room when there's a losing mentality, there are certain players in there who just don't either have the heart or the strength of mental capacity to get out of that, and Harry will suss them out very quickly, weed them out and want them out of the club. Interestingly, if you look at Harry's record, if you like, he got the best out of Paul Di Canio, someone who was a maverick talent, but very temperamental. Okay, people are saying, well, he sold Adel Taarabt out of Tottenham. Well, he sold him because basically he didn't think he's worked hard enough in training, and he kept falling over. Taarabt, I think, has actually become a better player since he's got some experience both in the Championship when they came up to the Premier League and in the Premier League. I think Harry will look at Taarabt now and think, actually, I could use him in a way that will get the best out of him. I think Harry's got the ability to do that.
He's been QPR's best player, Taarabt.
Yeah.
Mark Hughes has turned him round.
Well, there you go. If there's a legacy of Mark Hughes leaves at QPR, it's Adel Taarabt is a better player.
He is a better player now. I've played against Taarabt. I'm not sure Michael has.
I remember, yeah.
And, he'd lose the ball, he'd throw his arms up, and the type of thing Harry was alluding to. If a player stands there and throws his arms up, yeah, not part of me. But I tell you what, I've been impressed with Taarabt this year. He's their spark. He's got great technical ability, but he works back a bit now.
Yeah, so there's nothing worse than that. There's nothing worse than giving a ball to a fellow player, and him doing something or you doing something wrong and throwing your arms up at, in front of all the crowd, in front of your teammates and everything else. You don't need that type of player, and he's obviously alluded to that.
You've been in teams like that, have you?
Yeah, there are players around. The fans can see them because a lot of players will play to the crowd. They know everyone's watching. They know the camera's on them, and if it wasn't their fault, then people obviously show that it wasn't their fault, and that's crippling to a team, especially in a relegation team.
And how did you stop that in a team that you've been in, where somebody's throwing their arms up and that? Is it the captain that has to kind of nail that, the manager, or is it a group mentality that just tells that player that isn't acceptable?
Well, I think it's their own individual thing. I mean, if someone does that, if someone did that to me, if I played them a ball and it was just to the side of them and they didn't, and they threw their arms up as if to say it was a bad bad pass and almost showed me up, and by telling the crowd, then I'd certainly go up to him at half-time or at the end of the game and have a word with him and say, don't do that again. Don't do that again. No, it's not like I'm going to threaten them with physical size or anything, is it? But I'd certainly ask the question.
Obviously, one player that Harry can't count on. What, Robbie?
I've just got the stats, towards the end of last season.
All right.
Can I just read them out?
Stat that matters.
I'm just saying, you said
relegated on the final day. That's
you said Mark Hughes was sacked because as well towards the end of last season. QPR 3, Liverpool 2, Sunderland 3, QPR 1, QPR 2, Arsenal 1, Man United 2, QPR 0, QPR 3, Swansea 0, West Brom 1, QPR 0, QPR 1, Tottenham 0, Chelsea 6, QPR 1, QPR 1, Stoke 0, Man City 3, QPR 2. I think that's a very, very good form towards the end of the season. So I don't think Mark Hughes got sacked from that. I think he's got sacked because of his results this season.
OK, back to Harry Redknapp. One of the players that he won't be able to call on is this man who's on a season-long loan. What's it? You know what country he's on a season-long loan in?
Yesterday I make one tackle and all everybody speak about is this tackle. Nobody speaks about a 50-yard pass that kills Balmon and it causes a red card for him. And nobody talks about the shot that Landrew would have been happy to see. He didn't see the ball, never mind have a chance to save it. So for me, it's important that people speak about the qualities I bring as a footballer, and I'm a little bit bored, from the English media, and hopefully the French media has more about it than the English media, and concentrate on stupid little incidents like this.
Joey Barton, in his press conference, he has defended himself, and I get his point here, right? Why are you rolling your eyes?
I'm not. Right. I think it is very, very good.
He says, in my defence, it is very difficult to do a press conference in Scouse for a room full of French journalists, and you do slip into a way of talking, and you kind of put on that accent.
Do you, Michael?
When you were in Spain, did you? If you had to speak in English, did you have a slightly Spanish accent?
Just don't ask me. Don't ask me this one. Oh, dear. Ian?
No, I normally speak in Spanish, Italian and French. I don't need to have an accent.
Obviously...
I didn't play professional football, unfortunately.
Obviously, Joey Barton's the pupil. Just for old time's sake, let's hear the master.
I say, I think we are not just what you call underdogs, but massive underdogs. I think there is no expectations for FC20. So... everything is there for a surprise.
Yeah. There you go then. Steve McLaren from a couple of years ago when he was putting on his fantastic Dutch.
I think McLaren's Dutch is better than...
So when you go on holiday, chappers, when you go on holiday to France or Spain, wherever you go, do you speak like that accent?
I think...
So if you went to France, we're ordering a loaf of bread, how would you order it? What would you do then?
Well, I would...
Well, go on, speak.
Well, no, in France it'd be fine because I can speak French.
Okay, if you went to Spain then.
Well, no, but what you do is...
you so you can understand.
You do twang it, don't you? My missus always says to me, why are you talking, if it's a foreign person, why are you talking like that to a foreign person?
Exactly.
I think everyone does
it. You put a bit of twang on. No, I'm not. No, we've heard Joey Barton and Steve McLaren. There's no need to hear anybody else putting on a comedy foreign accent, is there? We're going to move on, because this is much more important. 20 years ago today, an icon of the modern football era moved across the Pennines and became the catalyst for a period of domination.
Cantona turns and Cantona equalises for Manchester United.
He changed everything for us. His stature on the pitch, the way he conducted himself, and he turned us into winners.
It's Cantona against Karin. And another goal! It must be a double for Manchester United.
I think he just started everything going, and I think the fans just appreciate his love for the club.
Set up for Cantona. Great goal by Eric Cantona!
Arrogance. He just had that arrogance of, somebody who knew how good he was, I suppose.
Cantona has got involved with a fan in the front row of the stand, and they're exchanging punches. Moi je voulais être Eric Cantona. Cantona can make it 2-2 on his big return, and he does!
When the seagull follows a trawler, it's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea.
Manchester United with a corner. Beckham takes it deep, punched away, punched on into Cantona. Cantona puts it into the net.
His charisma, his personality, what he did, the impact he had with the young players, that'll never be forgotten.
Eric Cantona first walked into Old Trafford on the 26th of November 1992. How did the deal come about, though? The man who sold him was the then Leeds United boss, Howard Wilkinson.
The chief executive Leeds was having a chat with the chief executive of Manchester United, who I was talking to on Friday, as it were, about it, having had a long chat with Eric at Old Trafford after the unveiling of Sir Alex's statue, and it was as said. They were chatting. We were trying to see if we could get hold of Dennis Irwin, and at the end of that conversation, Martin mentioned Eric's name. Eric at that point was in France and had asked for a transfer and sent a written request basically saying they would like to go to Manchester United or Arsenal or Liverpool. We had no other offer during the time he was back in France, and given the circumstances and given the fact that, you know, we were in danger of losing 1.1 million or whatever it was, we decided to accept it.
So the chief executive came to you and said, is this all right? And you sanctioned it, is that? Or did the chief executive lead it?
No, the chief executive rang me and said, Martin Edwards has asked me about Eric. What's your view? They're prepared to make an offer. You know the club's feeling. I mean, it was the chairman who'd financed that deal. So it was all his money. And in the circumstances, and there were a lot of circumstances, I decided it was the best thing to do. I think he'd started 7 games in the championship season. We hadn't done well the season afterwards, and I'd started with him in the team and decided eventually to leave him out in an away game in November. As a result of leaving him out, he decided he didn't want to play for Leeds, and so in many respects it was a mirror image swap of the circumstances which has surrounded Gordon Strachan coming to Leeds. And
when you were at the statue unveiling on Friday, did you and Sir Alex and Eric all have a conversation, the three of you?
I had a long chat with Eric. Yeah, we had a long chat together before, and then again afterwards we had a further chat, but he seems fine and very happy in New York. Loves the scene out there, and expressed the fact that like me, he'd now become very, very interested in youth development.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, he's director of football, or he wasn't sure what his title was, but but he was keen to stress that his chief interest was in developing young talents.
Howard Wilkinson talking to me a little earlier about Eric Cantona. How was the Frenchman greeted by his new teammates on his arrival at Old Trafford? Let's talk to Dion Dublin, part of the Manchester United squad at the time. Evening, Dion.
Good afternoon, sir.
We should point out, shouldn't we, that it was you were responsible for Cantona signing for United.
Yeah, I think you'll find I was the catalyst to Man United's success, actually.
So actually...
Let's get it right, chappers, come on.
We should be marking when you joined the club rather than when Cantona joined the club.
Exactly.
Because you sadly broke your leg, didn't you? And therefore Alex Ferguson needed a new striker.
Yeah, I was fortunate to score on my debut, and then I had a couple of decent games up front with Mark Hughes, and then on my Old Trafford debut, I broke my leg after about 65 minutes, and I was out for 8 months. And the early period of that, me being in a cast from my groin to my toes, Sir Alex decided to bring in some unknown French guy who had a bad touch. He couldn't finish. His vision was terrible. And he just became an absolute legend at Man United.
What was the reaction of the players when they first met Cantona?
There was a little bit of sort of sort of hands-off, sort of from the Man United boys that were there at present. Sort of, let's see what he's like. Let's see how he gets on. And you know what, Chappers, he fitted in absolutely spot on. His training was amazing. He took the mick out of players so often. So much skill and vision was just incredible that you had to hold your hands up and say, listen, this guy's going to be just a genius. And when you've got Eric Cantona, Mark Hughes, Brian McClare and Paul Scholes in front of you, there's not much of a way back of getting into the first team, you know. So I had to hold my hands up and say, listen, I think it's best I move on.
Did the manager treat him differently to other players?
Yes, he did. Yeah, he did. There was times when Eric sort of bent the rules, and so Alex spoke to him but kept him on side. I think there's a way of dealing with Eric, and you can't deal with Eric as you did Paul Ince, because you can have a go at Paul Ince and he'd respond. If you had a go at Eric, I think he'd probably say, listen, I'll go somewhere else. But that's why Sir Alex is the best. He managed individual personalities rather than a team.
Did other players resent that, or was that part and parcel of it?
I think it's part and parcel, because what the players wanted is the best from each individual, and Sir Alex would just deal with it so that if we knew we were going to get the best out of Eric, we'd have a better chance of winning the game, because he could do things that no other player in the Man United squad could do. So let's keep him happy within boundaries, and we know we've got a better chance of him scoring or creating something for us.
Thank you very much, Dion Dublin on the Monday Night Club. One of the things that Cantona is credited with as well, and Howard Wilson mentioned the youth development, but a lot of that youth team that you were in, Robbie, were inspired by Cantona and his training methods and his dedication, weren't they?
It's Robbie at Man United.
I was in that youth team, which obviously was worth 401 million. I was the million. It was it was that whole group, really. You know, Steve Bruce, Gary Pallister, Mike Hughes, Ince, Cantona. If you're looking at, you know, one player who transformed United, you can look hard back to Mark Robbins' goal against Nottingham Forest in the FA Cup, which people say kept Fergie's job. But the sign of Cantona, for me, you've got to look at Henry, Bergkamp. Cantona, for me, is the best one. Zola. Cantona, just, you know...
For a million.
Yeah, his aura. You know, that goal against Sunderland when he just stood there and looked around the ground. Incredible. And, yeah, for me, the best ever signing from Fergie.
Text are 85058. If you tweet us, use hashtag MNC. When you were given the 7 shirt at Manchester United, did that mean something to you? I mean, obviously you were aware of who'd worn it in the past.
Of course, yeah. I mean, I had no idea that was going to be the case. I mean, I joined Manchester United. I thought Valencia was going to get it because we signed at the same time, but the manager got us in the office. I'm not sure whether Antonio wanted it or not at the time. And the manager pulled a couple of us into the office and obviously said to me, I think, you know, you should wear it, Michael. Responsibility, etc. And would you want to? And obviously, I was only too pleased. I mean, I realised what the shirt represents and everything else. And unfortunately, I didn't reach the heady heights of the Beckhams and Cantonas and Robsons and the rest. But you know, I certainly wore it with pride. It was a fantastic honour to be given.
No, but in days now of squad numbers and players wearing this, that and whatever, to think of Alex Ferguson actually calling somebody in to say, are you willing to wear what is in essence only a number?
That's a very heavy shirt.
Yeah.
That's a very heavy... I mean, Cristiano Ronaldo, you didn't even mention Cristiano there, Michael.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it was... I mean, that takes a lot to...
George Best.
George Best. Exactly.
So, no, I agree with Michael. I think it's a... Yeah, you would think, yeah, it's an honour, but God, I'm automatically going to be...
It was, and my first thought was, you know, what will the fans think? You know, they've had all these greats and wearing the shirt, and straight away the pressure was on. But I was at an age, to be honest, things like that don't faze me. I'm perfectly comfortable with pressure and things like that. So it wasn't my feelings that were... I wasn't worried in any way, shape or form myself. I was more thinking, you know, I hope the fans will be all right with it in many ways, and I hope it doesn't put any resentment between,
Yeah.
or towards me.
That's understandable. 85058 on the text. Mark in Derry, the best player and the best bargain for United over the last 30 years. Eric Le Catalyst. Phil in London, Cantona vastly overrated. Did little in Europe and even less internationally. Not in the same league as the likes of Henry, Bergkamp or indeed Zola. A good player, yes, but great no. And by the way, I'm not an Arsenal fan. And Rich in Birmingham, you have to get Joey Barton to do the Cantona Seagulls speech.
5 Live Sports.
The Monday Night Club with Mark Chapman.
Got stats flying here, there and everywhere this evening about Mark Hughes. Archie's just tweeted me to say Mark Hughes has won 7 of his last 47 Premier League away games. That's his away record at Manchester City, Fulham and QPR combined. 85058 on the text. You can tweet us using hashtag MNC. Michael Owen, Robbie Savage and Ian McGarry are the Monday Night Club this evening. We're going to start this second hour by talking about striker partnerships, because if you look not only across the Premier League but maybe across Europe and the lower leagues as well, a twin strike force is becoming rarer and rarer now, as managers prefer to go with one man up front, or sometimes even none when we have the false number 9. How alarming is it for you, Michael, that this trend seems to have caught on?
Not really, because I'm at the end of my career. It would be very 10 years ago. My type of player is almost becoming extinct in the game now. If you were moulding a centre forward nowadays, you would most definitely go for size and presence with a bit of speed. They're the sort of the main physical attributes that you need. Just because of the formations everyone's playing now. More and more you're seeing what you'd normally see as a striker playing out wide to accommodate players. But yeah, it's very rare that you're playing 2 up front with a little and large or something like that nowadays.
Do you think an 18-year-old Michael Owen, if he was starting out now, would be used as one of the wide ones of a front 3 or a 4-5-1, however you want to? Is that kind of where you would be given your pace?
Very possibly, or you'd be that sort of advanced midfielder of a 3 joining the striker, and that's probably, if I can get back onto the field again, is probably where I'd play for Stoke. In behind a big man.
Kind of how Charlie Adams playing for you at the moment.
That's right. So, and yeah, I mean, you'd be shaped in a certain way. So it's you've got so many small players now playing in and around. You can be creative. I think that people are being more and more creative all the time in the formation and how things are played. So it's not to say you need to be big nowadays. Far from it. But the way I play, the way I have played throughout my career, it's very rare, I think, or it's certainly going out the game in terms of the big striker with the runner and the finisher running off him.
When do you think this kind of became more and more the norm?
Well, I think Mourinho, when he came to Chelsea and won the Premier League in his first season, he did it in a 4-3-3, but he played obviously with Drogba as the point striker, Duff and Robin either side, and that's kind of almost morphed into the 4-2-3-1 that we now just
it's all the same.
I know, but
just the same.
But for the sake of differentiation, Michael, it's that's the way it's gone. It's now been, as Michael rightly says, 4-2-3-1 is almost it's the formation that almost every Premier League team uses now. It's also the same formation that almost every team in the Liga use and in Italy. So, we've definitely away from 4-4-2.
Isn't it ironic though that the most successful team over the last 20 years or ever for that fact, Manchester United, I mean, if they're at home, they play 2 strikers because they back themselves. They can score goals. They can outscore anyone at home. Yes, hands up, if they're playing a top team, they tend to tweak it a bit, or if they go away in Europe or away to anyone that the manager was a little bit wary of. But if they're playing anyone that he thinks will just outgun them, then he goes 2 up front.
But did it stay as simple as that? I mean, when playing at home for Manchester United, were you sent out 4-4-2 the majority of the time? Was it that simple?
Well, yeah. I mean, 4-4-2 is what you write down on paper, but it's more or less how you set out. But I mean, nowadays there's all kinds that happens. I mean, wingers will tuck in. If you're playing a 4-4-2, then wingers will tuck in because normally you're outside, you're outnumbered in the middle. So that would happen. So you might play with a less, say a Nani or someone like that that's basically not going to give you much going backwards, but he's going to give you loads going forward. In a 4-4-2, you might be a little bit more worried playing that because you really have got a lot of attacking options there. So in a 4-3-3, then these wide men, you can really afford to go attacking with them. So a Nani and players like that would come into their own there. So the manager used to tweak it here and there, but basically, at home against probably half, maybe a bit more than half of the teams in the Premier League, then he would go out and try to swap them.
Does a lack of striking duos then, does that change the role of a central midfield in it?
Possibly, because as Ian alluded to earlier, with the three in behind Torres, if you bypass them and hit it to Torres, you're bypassing three of your best players. So I think as a midfielder, when you're in a nick a ball around the corner, you've got to know that, with a big man, little man relationship, or somebody can hold it up who you're hitting. I think one of the most important places on a football pitch these days, how it's changed, where you're talking about two up front, is the fullbacks. And I think, what Michael's saying in 4-3-3, I think the fullbacks in modern day football are two of the most important positions on the pitch, where everybody thought in years gone by, we have to play a two up front, 4-4-2, fullbacks just defend. Now, these formations, if you're looking at the fullbacks, so important. And that's how the game's adapted over the last few years.
Yeah, you used to put the worst player, didn't you, at school? You just whack him fullback, it's out the way. Now it's, as Robbie says, it's your out ball. It's... I think, first of all, this 4-5-1, 4-3-3, however you want to call it, it's to gain control of midfield. You can't lose central midfield nowadays. But in doing that, your out ball is always your fullback. And fullbacks over the years have gone from being centre-halves pushed out to fullbacks or just defenders to you have to be a converted winger nowadays to be a top fullback. You need to be good on the ball. You need to have a big pair of lungs. You need to get round and be a good crosser of the ball. I mean, all the top fullbacks are all that type of players now.
And therefore, if your fullback's going to be a good crosser of the ball, that's why more and more you need your lone striker to have the physical presence to be able to challenge, don't you?
You do. I think over the years the biggest change is it used to be a back foot. Your defenders defend. Yeah. Now I think you've replaced the fullbacks. They're now attacking weapons, and you've replaced it with sitting midfielders. So. It's almost that's been the sea change really, and as you say, you've a striker has been sacrificed to strengthen that midfield over time, and now but you're still seeing a lot of goals. I mean, people are changing their formation.
Interestingly as well, the box to box midfield has almost become redundant now as well because of the two sitting players. Basically, the fullbacks, the two central midfielders deferring possession to the fullbacks. They create the link between the middle and the final third to the creative players behind the striker. So basically, you've got effectively 6 attacking players and 4 two sitting midfielders, 2 centre halves. And when you're in possession of the ball, the 2 sitting midfielders, 2 centre halves are the ones defending, and everyone else is going forward. So effectively, central midfield has almost become a lost art as well now because it's about big physical players, or not necessarily that big, but holding, tackling, breaking up play, closing down space.
Yeah, I do think you can with these new formations, you can get a good marauding midfield. I mean, I think Frank Lampard's the perfect example over the last few years, or since Mourinho took over. Really, I mean, he can afford to bomb on. I was always sort of sceptical when people said Gerrard and Lampard can't play in midfield, but they played as a two. It's just not what they're used to. Lampard can break himself free because he knows he's got protection, and that's the hardest run to pick up, one that comes late into the box. And players like Nolan at West Ham's another. They're midfielders that run forward knowing that they don't have to worry about their defensive duties, and that late run can and that's why you get a lot of goal scoring midfielders now.
You did the piece on Match of the Day too a couple of weeks ago on Nolan and Carroll, and the positive side of that is that you have one with his back to goal and then Nolan being able to run onto it. And Barr and Cisse played for Newcastle against West Ham in that game, and they both played with their backs to goal. So if you're having a partnership, you want somebody who's different, evidently, to you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you're not wanting the two. So I mean, it always used to be little and large, didn't it? You'd have your big battering.
So is that what you wanted? Did you prefer playing alongside a big battering ram?
Yeah, all my success in my career was with an Alan Shearer, and
Emil
Emil
Heskey, he's on the phone after.
Yeah,
he's on the phone now. Actually,
that was where I had most of my success in my career. Yeah,
and here he is. Evening, Emil.
Well, it's morning here.
Yeah, morning. Have we woken you up?
Yeah.
Apologies for that. Why do you think that you and Michael work so well together?
It's probably just the understanding we had. Obviously, I know the way I play, and obviously, and he knew that if I was going up for a ball, if I was going to flick on a ball, if there was a ball coming in, I knew that he was around the corner just to go and run onto and have a shot at goal. So I knew that I was aware of that.
Did it click straight away, would you say?
Yeah, he was 16, I was 18 at the time, under 18. So, and it was straight from then that it clicked. So, and we never looked back from there.
I mean, you've been listening to the discussion about how playing up front has changed for people. How's it changed your game, would you say?
It's a lot different now. You don't have partnerships. You don't have partnerships anymore. Obviously, you play with lone strikers. You play with one behind, and usually the one behind is usually a midfielder. It's not really a striker anymore. So you don't really forge a partnership with the player. We used to do things in training that obviously with Julia, and I would just turn, and he knew that if I was going up for a head, and if I knew if he was behind me and couldn't get the flick on, I'd have to head it back to him. So we had a bit of an understanding.
Does that mean, because Jason Roberts always moans to me now that he wants to play two up front because otherwise he has to do a lot more running. Does that mean you have to do a lot more work up there on your own?
No, not necessarily. For one up front, you're not involved as much.
Right.
They use the one behind you. The three in the midfield actually get to keep the ball a lot more and circulate it wide, and you've just got to get in the box. So you're actually not involved as much as when you got two up front.
Emil, I think a lot of Liverpool and England fans who've watched you and Michael play over the years probably, and Michael will say yes, unfairly, he got the glory, you got the work rate, didn't you? He scored all the goals and you're the one sort of doing the graft.
Not for Liverpool, it wasn't that way. Emil was unplayable for a few years there. Yeah.
All right, thinking of England goals.
We had a partnership, and I think in 2000, I think Michael got 15 goals. 15 league goals. Is it league goals, right?
Something like that. 28 in the treble season, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I got 21. I got 21. So it was a partnership that we had, and it was successful. Really, we won the cups. We got to. I think we finished second in the league once. So it's we forged a partnership there.
Let's just talk about where you are at the moment and how it's going with the Newcastle Jets in the A-League, because all of a sudden Australian football's making a real push, isn't it? A real big stand to try and get lots of names in to up the standard of its league. How have you found the A-League?
No, it's been good. It's been something different for me. Obviously, I've never left England, so it was something nice for me when it came up. That I had to look at, and then when the CEO and that came over to speak to me, it was I spoke to Bridgie as well, who's playing here with me. He loved it out here. Spoke to Robbie, and it was something that I felt I had to do.
And why did you think you had to do it then? What did they say to you that sold it?
Obviously, I'm coming from Leicester, and knowing how Leicester was, Robbie knows what it's like as well. It's a family club. Everyone enjoys themselves, and everyone loves going out and playing for the team. So, and it was pretty much the same. Well, it was said the same here. Everyone loves it. It's a small town, and everyone loves to play football. So I thought, why not?
And what's the standard like?
It's good. It is good actually. It's slower at times only because of the weather. It can get very hot and humid. On Saturday, it was in Melbourne. It was really humid. But But the standard is good. They encourage everyone to play football, everyone to keep it playing on the floor. Playing out from the back sometimes a bit suicidal, but they encourage you to play football.
And Alessandro Del Piero's out there as well, isn't he? David Beckham's been linked to the league. Is that getting a lot of coverage over there, the Beckham link?
Yeah, obviously. The Becks one is massive. I think there's about four clubs who have put in offers for him. It'll be massive if he came over. He's a great star and a great player, so it'd be massive for the league here if he ever came over.
Listen, thank you very much for joining us, Emil. We really appreciate it. Sorry to have woken you up.
No problem.
All right.
No problem.
Cheers. Emil Heskey on the Monday Night Club on 5 Live Sport. Philip on Twitter asks, is it just not a phase at the moment that football are mainly playing one-up on their own? Teams are only following the success of Barcelona. At some stage it will go in cycles. It will revert back to 2 up top.
It might do. We're saying that's the case, but Van Persie and Rooney started up front for Manchester United, and Welbeck started on the left, and then they brought on Hernandez. So at one point, you had 4 strikers on the pitch. So maybe Man United are the exception that proves the rule. They don't always, and Michael said that was never the case at home. I think the trend is certainly to play one striker because that seems to be the way that's gained the most success around Europe. But I don't think there's any reason to believe that it won't go back to 4-4-2 at some point.
No, I think football is a fashion in many ways.
Yeah.
France win the World Cup and there was an invasion of French players and French managers, and Spain win the World Cup and then all the Spanish came over. I mean, it is a fashion, and formations are the same, and no question about it. There'll be a new formation if Barcelona or someone else goes and wins a European Cup playing a different way to everyone else, then a lot of people will follow.
Actually, mate, when you think about it, when United lost to Barcelona and Rome, that was when, because it was so comprehensive, it was actually quite embarrassing, and people thought that's when even Sir Alex Ferguson decided, I'm going to have to think differently now about my formations, because if we're ever going to achieve the same level as Barcelona, then we have to think differently. And I think maybe that had quite a big impact on Premier League clubs in general, because everyone looked at it and thought, my God, if that's our best team being so outplayed by their best team, then we're going to have to do something to try and mirror it.
You tweeted last week, didn't you? By the way, thank you very much for all the nice comments on Twitter. Richard Spillman, Chris Tappenden, among the ones enjoying the striker discussion. You tweeted last week in a Q&A session the 4 best partners up front that you had: Rooney, Shearer, Raul, and the Brazilian Ronaldo, who are all quite different.
They were. I mean, unfortunately for me, the real Ronaldo, as most people call him, the Brazilian one. Unfortunately, he was just coming to the end of his career and he was dogged with knee problems. But Cork could just see, he was unbelievable in training and he would flashes of just brilliance, and you could only imagine what he was like in his prime. I mean, I've seen videos and what a player he was. Raul, again, was towards the end of his career, even though he played a few years on. And he was very, very good.
What was he like? Because he's probably the one out of maybe the 4 that we know the least. I mean, when I say the least, it's all relative. Obviously, we know a lot about Raul, but I'm just intrigued as to what he brought to a partnership up front.
He worked very hard. He really was a hard worker, good finisher, good in front of goal, brave, not blessed with loads of speed. In fact, when I was in Madrid, he was having a bit of a tough time with the fans in a strange way, because he had been there for so long and all-time scorer and all that. But he was having a little brush at the time with the fans. But no, a very good player. Obviously, his record will back that up. But not someone that was, when you talk about someone, you just go, wow. I mean, like a Zidane, who just takes your breath away. It wasn't that type of player. More a functional, gets his goals, works hard. Got an element of class. Of course he did, but not in the same class as someone like Zidane.
Did you end up with a telepathy with these 4 that you had with Emil? I mean, Emil was there saying, when he went up in the air, he knew that you'd be going in behind him to get that knock on. Did you have the same telepathy with any of these 4?
Yeah, but the ball didn't go up in the air at Real Madrid.
No.
So the telepathy was always just, where's the next pass? I mean, we used to play a 4-4-2 at Madrid. Again, we had Figo on the right, Zidane on the left, and 2 strikers, but the 2 midfielders would be 2 solid midfielders. There wouldn't, there wouldn't be any messing about there. So we used to have sort of 4 players attacking and then a flying fullback, a Roberto Carlos or a Salgado at the time. So it was a good team. Joined at a great time, and obviously David Beckham was there as well.
It wasn't bad.
It was when you said, we had Figo on the right, and then there was Zidane. Robbie looked at me, and I looked at Robbie. That's a good team.
We didn't win the league, though, unfortunately. Barcelona were just and Samuel Eto'o at the time was just banging him in left, right, and centre. He was the bane of our life at the time.
Yeah, Ronaldinho
as well. He was on fire. But we and we got a good stuffing at the new camp. We got done 3-0, but at Madrid and the Bernabeu we beat them 4-2, and that was probably the highlight of my time there.
Ricky has tweeted us saying Inter played Juve the other week, and the formations there were 3-4-3 against 3-5-2. Perhaps all this goes in cycles, with one formation cancelling another. It's the Monday Night Club, 85058. If you want to text us, if you tweet us, just use the hashtag MNC. Next, we're going to find out why this team are the surprise package of the season so far.
Fortunate shot, 4-2 to West Bromwich Albion. They're third in the Premier League table. The icing on the cake of a very impressive performance here at the Stadium of Light.
5 Live Sports.
The Monday Night Club with Mark Chapman.
It's Ian McGarry and Robbie Savage and Michael Owen on the Monday Night Club this evening, 85058. What's wrong?
Somebody just tweeted, I was expecting Heskey to sound like Jason Donovan after that Joey Barton.
Now you would pay to hear that.
Yeah, now you've got to give that person credit.
It was Sean Jones.
Well done. Wow. Very, very good. So McGarry, Savage and Michael Owen on the Monday Night Club, 85058 on the text. If you tweet us, use hashtag MNC, although you can find all 4 of us individually on Twitter as well. Elaine has tweeted us saying, what time's Kevin Keane on? I've got TV programmes I want to watch. Well, Elaine, with West Brom lying third in the Premier League after their 4-2 win at Sunderland on Saturday, I'm delighted to say that Kevin Keane, West Brom's joint assistant head coach, joins us now. Evening, Kevin.
Evening, lads.
Evening.
Great show.
Thank you very much. We'll make it about 5 minutes, then Elaine can get to whatever TV programme she wants to watch. The feeling in the camp must be buoyant, isn't it?
It's really good at the moment. It's a fantastic place to be. The training ground's buzzing. Everyone's very happy. It's a really good time at the moment, and hopefully we can keep it going.
How do you keep it going?
I think just more of what we've been doing. We're going to need a little bit of luck with injuries and suspensions and things like that, because we obviously haven't got the resources of the top teams. But we just keep working hard, doing the same things we've been doing. There's a fantastic team ethic at the club, which has been built over years, and Steve's built on that. And hopefully that will just keep us going. Like I say, things like suspensions and injuries with our squad, it could prove difficult, but we're going to keep going and try and keep the Baggies fans happy as long as we can. But they're a realistic bunch up here in the Black Country, and hopefully they know that maybe at some time, we might not be third in the league anymore, but we'll see.
They are realistic, although they do veer with me towards either having a go at us for not giving you enough praise, or then when we do give you praise, then saying, actually, no, keep quiet about it because we don't want the secrets revealed. So they are realistic, but they kind of mix between wanting credit and for it to stay quiet. Just out of interest, Matt Holland on Final Score a couple of weeks ago said that when Ipswich were in a similar position, they used the fact that people kept saying they'll never keep it up as motivation to keep going and qualify for Europe at the end of the season. Do you think that's something you will do as well?
I'm not sure, really. I mean, the squad we've got a lot of experienced players who've played in the league for quite some time, and they're enjoying being near the top of the league. They've had perennial years of struggling with relegation, and then the last 2 years have been good years where they've been mid-table. So I think a lot of the experienced lads in the group will be more saying, well, we'll show you, we think we're good enough to stay up there. People like Chris Brunt, who come from Sheffield Wednesday, who's been at the club a long time, Zoltan Gira, Youssef Malumba, we've got some experienced players. I think it's more those reacting to the training and the coaching that Steve's been doing, and just wanting to show people that, perhaps we can be more than just a mid-table or a lower table team.
Kevin, it seems to me that West Brom, there's no, where other clubs have chopped and changed managers, coaches, players, etc., etc. One thing that's been consistent about West Brom has been the vision of the people who own the club. Dan Ashworth is director of football. Basically, they put an ethos in place quite a few years ago where they're combining a long-term strategy encompasses and combines a development squad, the academy, first team, player recruitment, even to the style of play. And it just seems to me like, this hasn't happened overnight, but what's happened this season has been built on very, very solid foundations. I agree with you, Ian. I think the way the chairman has gone about his business, and especially Dan Ashworth, who's starting to get a little bit of publicity, obviously, because of him probably he's going to England at the end of the season. They've built a real strong base, and from that, Roy Hodgson was able to develop a very good team that finished mid-table for 2 years. And then Steve has just tweaked a couple of things on the playing side, but certainly that base that was there, as you say, is probably not getting the recognition it deserves. And maybe if other clubs in the Premier League had looked after their finances and sourced players the way West Bromwich Albion had done, there would perhaps not be so many in financial trouble.
Kevin, Michael Owen speaking.
Hi, Michael. It's a pleasure to speak to you.
And you, mate. Talk to me about Jakob. I've been particularly impressed with him this season.
Claudio come on a free transfer from Argentina. He played a lot of games for Racing Club in Argentina and was even their captain, played a couple of games for the actual Argentinian team. And he flew a little bit under the radar this year, and I think a lot of clubs looked at him and didn't really think he was for them. But as soon as Steve and I had looked at a few videos, Steve said that he's the one for us that can play that holding role that we need. We've got a lot of creative players. Brunt, I've mentioned, Morrison, Gira, a lot of creative midfield players. And Steve just felt we needed that holding midfield player, that Makelele type that he had at Chelsea. And so far this year, he's been a revelation. He's a fantastic lad. And one of the things for me that is really good about him, he wants to win so much. I mean, we all want to win, but those Argentinian people have a real makeup of wanting to be winners, and he shows that every time he goes on the pitch.
When you say you and Steve watch videos of him, when you watch videos of a player like that, are you seeing the whole 90 minutes of a game, or are you seeing edited highlights of, say, 4 or 5 of his most recent matches?
It varies, chappers. It depends how much time we've got. We do have people. We were talking about the structure earlier with Ian, and they've got a fantastic facility for scouting players all around the world and video facilities. So we have people there that clip games. So we'll see every single action that Claudio Jakob made in a certain game, and we'll have 4 or 5 games just with highlights of him. And we could see from those that he was the type of player that we needed.
You mentioned your scouting system. I certainly don't want you to dismiss other Premier League clubs, but where you've been and your experience of the game, do you think West Brom's scouting network is up there with the best?
I do, yeah.
Do you think some clubs don't put enough into scouting and kind of know that agents will come to them with players?
I've got to be a little bit careful what I say here, but I do think that agents have a big role in the game in pushing their players and trying to earn money from pushing players to Premier League clubs. And certainly with the chairman that we've got, unless you are 100% sure, he's not going to put his hand in his pocket and spend the money on someone. So the detail that West Brom go into since I've been here is a little bit of a revelation. And not just that, the whole structure that Ian was on about, the structure of the club is very, very good and solid. And I do think that other clubs could take a little bit of a leaf out their book because you see people spending lots of money on different players. And like I say, I think agents have a big influence and perhaps not signing the right players. We wanted a defensive midfield player, so we scouted 3 or 4, and Claudio's the one we chose. And he's been a revelation. He's been fantastic for us. Other people, agents will go, we've got this fantastic player, we've got this fantastic player, and it's like being in a sweet shop. And perhaps some other clubs have taken players that maybe don't fit into a system, because at the moment the big thing about West Brom is the system that we're playing and the way we play. Everyone's bought into it, and it's going well.
Hi Kevin, Robbie, how are you?
I'm good, Robbie. I see you wrote a little bit about Claudio on the website, I think, on the weekend, didn't you?
Yeah, he's top draw. Just a question from me. At the end of the season, just for instance, you're in that Europa League place. You've said about your strength in squad, in depth. Hypothetically, next season, you qualify for the Europa League. Do you think you're going to grab that with both hands, or do you think it's going to be an hindrance? Is that league in it? Do you really want to be in it?
I know the manager really well, and the manager will want to finish as high in the league as possible. If that means there's more games next year, then fantastic. That would be absolutely brilliant for us. We've got some really good young players, and me standing here, being honest now, I know what Steve's like. We want to finish as high as we can. If we get a Europa League place, what an achievement that would be for West Brom, a club with, not the greatest finances in the Premier League by any stretch of the imagination. So I'm saying, Robbie, that if West Brom could get in the Europa League, I would be so happy.
Yeah, myself and Chappers have watched you a couple of times this season, and we're so impressed with, just what you've built on from Roy, and especially Shane Long up front. He epitomises West Brom for me.
Yeah, I mean, we've got so many unsung heroes, but certainly Shane is the one grabbing the headlines at the moment. Just his work ethic sort of typifies the whole squad. He's a great lad. He's very funny in training. He's got a few little jokes and cracks, but when he gets on the pitch, he is a total pest for every single centre-back, and when there's a chance to finish, he's going to finish. So I was we were really surprised that the Republic of Ireland didn't make more use of him, and it's only the last couple of games that he's played, because we can't see how he can't get into their team.
Kevin, listen, thank you very much for coming on, and thank you for your insight into how the season's gone so far. It's much appreciated.
It's a pleasure.
Cheers. Kevin Keane,
mate.
West
Bye.
Brom's joint assistant head coach. Thank you for your texts and your tweets on West Brom as well. Keith in Shrewsbury. West Brom have a policy of yearly improvement, sound finances, no fancy dans. Jimmy in Birmingham. West Brom wouldn't be where they are today without Gary Megson. He's the one who built the foundations. They were down and out when he took over in 2000. And Martin is a season ticket holder at Wigan. He says, I was at West Brom's game at Wigan. They were awesome. The hardest working team I have seen so far. They attack and defend as a team. It's the Monday Night Club. It's Robbie Savage and Ian McGarry and Michael Owen. Martin O'Neill has denied speculation he's on his way out of Sunderland following the club's 4-2 home defeat to West Brom at the weekend. Rumours of the manager's departure spread on social media on Saturday evening, but O'Neill insists he was as surprised as anyone.
I don't think there's much more to say, really, other than the fact that anybody can get onto Twitter and say whatever they want. And the very fact that no one comes to kind of verify the story does make that a wee bit disappointing, but that's absolute nonsense.
Needs something to go for him, though, doesn't he, at Sunderland at the moment?
It looked like it turned around at Fulham, didn't it? When Hangeland got sent off, that was a big moment in Sunderland's season, because I don't think they'd beat 11 men on the pitch at Fulham that day, but Hangeland was a big loss and it made it a lot easier. Fletcher gets a goal, and I thought maybe that was, the moment that the season would turn. But I get, when you lose in the way the manner did, even to a very good West Brom team that we've just been talking about, when you lose at home like that, you concede 4 goals. People just start to look at it a bit more with a lot more scrutiny and say, are we going the right direction? I think they're 16th now in the Premier League, I think, at the moment. And they have invested a decent amount of money. Fletcher was big money buy. Sissignon came in, okay, not under Martin O'Neill, but exactly. And people are expecting more. Look, Martin O'Neill will know that more than anyone, and I don't think it'll be lost on him with regards to what happens in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Because you get the feeling that when we get into this winter period of games, when there's so many games over the holiday period as well, that's when where you're going to finish starts to get put in a cast.
I think the last game as well that they'll want to be playing next is QPR. Harry Redknapp's team going up to the Stadium of Light. I mean, that could be a tricky one for Sunderland.
And it's live on 5. You're fitting in very well because you're just setting up the game, and then I do the trail. It's brilliant. It's live on 5 Live Sport tomorrow night. Is that Sunderland against QPR? Harry Redknapp's first match in charge of the West London side, and you will hear it live on 5 Live Sport.
5 Live Football League
with Mark Chapman.
We'll look back at the Formula 1 season from 9, and we'll hear more from Stuart Lancaster as well, England Rugby Union's head coach, and then it's Tuffers and Vaughan at 9:30. But as far as 5 Live Football League is concerned, let's start at the top of the Championship, where, Mark Clement, we have new leaders after Crystal Palace's 14-game unbeaten run came to an end at Leeds.
Yeah, first defeat for Ian Holloway as well, Chappers, wasn't it? A big win for Leeds too, first in 8 for them. Cardiff starting to pick up points, obviously, away from them. Do you know what? I think this weekend underlined the fact there is not a team in the Championship that can't win or lose points when least expected. I mean, Borough losing at home to Bristol City, Hull slipping up. I was with Steve Bruce there at Burnley. I mean, nobody has yet taken this division by the scruff of the neck and made a sort of consistent fist of it. It's still there for the taking for somebody getting a little run.
Well, one team very much on a run, and Millwall.
Indeed, all the more remarkable when you bear in mind that 2 months ago, Millwall were in the bottom three. Manager Kenny Jackett was supposedly under pressure. Saturday's impressive win at Blackburn took them into the playoff places, and it extended their unbeaten run to 11, all nicely coinciding with the manager's 5th anniversary in the job. Long-serving keeper David Ford's been with him through most of that period. I tell you what, David, long-serving, you've only been there since 2008.
Yeah, good evening, lads. Yeah, no, it's been a fantastic few years for myself and the manager and stuff. So
yeah,
we're on a good roll at the moment. So hopefully we can continue that.
We could give you a little bit of credit because you weren't actually playing the early part of the season when you couldn't hit a barn door and all that. But was crisis in the air? Did you have a clear the air? Are you doing something different that sent you on this remarkable run?
No, earlier on in the season we were quite unlucky in games, and the Championship in general is quite like that, where a bit of luck or there's fine margins where you may hit a post or hit a crossbar or whatever, and then all of a sudden you're still in the bottom, and you know yourself when you're in the bottom of the league, it's hard to get out of there. So yeah, we've had a bit of a change in luck, and we've hit a bit of form and confidence as well. It was a big thing where we were probably lacking earlier on in the season.
And I suppose, David, even on a bad run, I mean, I've met Kenny Jackett a few times. I always like behind closed doors in a dressing room, but he seems as though he's someone who is never going to panic. Even when things aren't going to plan, he will stay calm. Yeah,
his record speaks for itself. He's been in that position before where he knows the formula, and he always seems to, he says it himself, he'll get it right, and he always seems to do it, and he's certainly done it this year, where he always seems to make a couple of tweaks. There's not drastic changes or whatever, so no, he's been brilliant from Millwall, really.
It feels like there's a sort of changing of the guard a wee bit, lots of new blood coming in, and there's always that sort of motto, isn't there, that it takes a certain sort of individual to play for Millwall with the crowd and stuff. And well, I mean, does it? And have you seen players in the past sort of crumble under that and wilt under that ferocity?
Yeah, you see players down the last. I've seen players in the last few years and stuff, and certainly some of them have struggled to play at the Den and stuff, just with the expectation levels at the club and stuff, and they're not shy to voice their opinions and stuff. So yeah, you do got to be thick-skinned to play there, and I've always said, I think if you can play at Millwall, you can play it anywhere, So no, but it's saying that it's a fantastic place to play because the passion and the drive, and when they do get you on side, they're fantastic fans, and they get a lot of bad press as well, and it's probably only certain small individuals or small pockets, like anywhere, and I think it's at every club where you get certain individuals that bring your club down.
Yeah, but nevertheless, I mean, in the current environment, to sort of clean up the abuse coming from the terraces and stuff, I mean, how's that going to dovetail? Because they have been seen as an asset, but as you well know, there's a fine line between banter and it can go a bit OTT. Do you think Millwall are ultimately going to have to clean up what's coming from the supporters?
Well, I think a lot of it's been hard. It's been especially coming from the press side of things, because when I've played in games and all the time I've been there, I've never heard any racist element of it, towards anybody else, So it's you know what I mean. I think Millwall gets scrutinised because of their history and their past and stuff, and it is. I think at the moment they are doing a lot about it, and behind the scenes and everything else, So. Yeah, they're just working hard really at cleaning up the club's image and stuff, and yeah, they certainly seem to be going on the right lines.
David, let's end on a positive, and just try. And I don't want this whole half hour to be a West Brom loving, but talk about Chris Wood, who's on loan from West Brom. He's had a couple of loan spells in the Championship, and always seems to get goals. What's he like?
Yeah, he's a fantastic lad. He's a quiet lad. He just comes in and does his work and goes about his business. And he's been phenomenal for us. Really, his all-round game has been top class. And he's it always seems to happen. Lads come to Millwall on loan, and they always seem to prosper and stuff. Certainly since I've been at the club, and they always go on to say, go back to their parent club, better players.
Thanks for joining us this evening, David.
Cheers, mate.
No bother.
Appreciate it. David Ford, Millwall's goalkeeper there, unbeaten in 11. Just before we move away from the Championship, Mark, a word about Derby County's 17-year-old sensation, Will Hughes. Actually, before I talk to you about it, I might as well talk to Robbie about it.
Well, that's what I was hoping you would do, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, you must have been with him, Robbie, have you? You must have seen him coming through the youth team and stuff?
Yeah, he was the one, most definitely. He's fantastic in possession. He's got a great left foot. He can take free kicks, corners. Very comfortable on the ball. Receives it, facing the opposition goal on his back foot. Yeah, and I watched him at the weekend, and that pass to hit him, he doesn't go sideways or backwards. He hits that pass, forward as often as he can, which is a sign of a fantastic player. He's a real talent. They rate him very, very highly.
And because they rate him highly, he's obviously going to attract attention from Premier League clubs. Nigel Clough has spoken to the BBC East Midlands today, saying it's inevitable that he will attract interest, but they haven't had any offers. What would you advise him, Robbie?
Well, if you're looking at the clubs who are looking at him, all the big clubs, I think Mike was probably in a better position, to advise him than me. As a midfielder, do you go? I come from the Crew, where you had Danny Murphy, Neil Lennon, Seth Johnson, fantastic midfielders, and usually you pick the right club to go to. It's like Nick Powell, for instance, chose United. Can you turn down if United come calling, though you're not going to play that much? So I think the next move for Will Hughes, because he will go if he keeps performing, go to a club where you're going to play, because I think Powell has gone to United. Yes, he's a terrific talent, but is he actually going to play on a regular basis at Man United? I think probably for Will Hughes, if he goes to like a Westwood, just gone to Villa, and he's going to play week in, week out. So for me, a Will Hughes should go to a team in the Premier League where he's going to play and then progress further.
I think it's important to get your grounding at a certain club, and I'm almost one for going back a few years. Now I know everyone says these clubs got the great academies and everything else, but I don't half think we lose a lot of talent. I mean, there's a lot to be said. Again, if I had an ideal situation for my son, I'd have him in a top academy, because that's where all the top kids are, and I'd have him there, and he would be there until 16, 17. But then I'd fight like mad to get him out and to get him on loan somewhere, or to go down the league or whatever it might be. Okay, still stay with your top club, be contracted to them, but fight tooth and nail to get out, because they're missing on so much, and by the time they get their chance, it's very late. I mean, I was pushed in at 17, but I mean, some of these kids are top players that I've seen at different clubs. They're 21 and they still haven't made a first team.
You miss a huge
game.
part of your development, don't
it's
you?
ridiculous. So
you miss 4 years of your football
I think there's a lot to be said. As much as these clubs are fantastic, great facilities, and they do bring you on because you're playing with the best players, but there is a part of, or a point that I would say, get out, go and see the other side of it, and then come back a year later.
And in some ways, Michael, that's kind of how clubs like Derby, and we've heard from Ian Holloway in the past, Crystal Palace, for example, that's how they need to sell themselves to the kids in that area who might have the choice of 4 or 5 clubs.
Of course they do, and that's as well, I mean, a different debate, but that's how they've survived for so many years. The likes of Crew that brought Robbie and other players through, they've survived like that, but now a lot of kids aren't going to these, they're going to the fashionable big clubs, and you can totally understand why they do it. I mean, they are going to be playing alongside the best, but there's certainly a big case to be said for joining a small club as well.
Let's go on to League One. Mark, Brian Law's comments after his team's 4-0 defeat at Doncaster. What did he say, and what do you make of them?
Well, I mean, talk about a moment of abject irresponsibility. I mean, if this had come out of the mouth of a manager at the top end of the Premier League, I tell you what, they'd be lucky to survive the storm that would be in the tabloids. He's issued an apology today after describing the defending of his side in this 4-0 defeat to Doncaster in a post-match local BBC radio interview as bad as the Holocaust. He's since said the use of the word was not intended to cause offence. It was used in the heat of the moment and the frustration of the defeat. It was a poor choice of language to divine those emotions, and it wasn't meant in the true meaning of the word. Well, that's all right then. I mean, goodness me, there's a line, isn't there? And you, in the current environment and everything that's happened with West Ham over the weekend and all the anti-Semitic, chants that have been aimed at Spurs, you just don't cross it under any circumstances.
Let's move on to League Two, shall we, and leave that subject there and talk about a man who played up front with Michael for England in a European Championship qualifier on 10th of September 2003. England 2, Liechtenstein 0 it was.
Well,
hang on, Robert, hang on. Go on, Robbie.
See if Michael knows.
Who was it? Michael, do you know?
I've got it.
I think
James Beattie.
James Beattie. Oh, and I had my Family Fortunes wrong buzzer ready as well. But he got it right.
I can't believe I'm saying James Beattie scores for Accrington and Ed Gaddafi's got sent off for Barnet a couple of weeks ago. What is going on with football?
Well, but that's the point, isn't it? I mean, here's a bloke that's played for Blackburn, Southampton, Everton in the top flight, 15 million in transfer fees, 5 England caps. I mean, he's obviously back at an area where he grew up, but I gather his family home is on the south coast. So the commuting schlep must be enormous trying to hold the infrastructure together. I mean, Michael, the whole thirst for some of these individuals to keep playing, despite the fact they must have packed a bob or two away. They don't have to do it.
No, I mean, we all have different reasons, don't we, for playing on. Some people just love the game and want to play as high as they can. You think of some top players that have been like that. The Ian Rushes of this world, went down the leagues and for the love of the game. But from a personal point of view, it doesn't appeal to me. I love the game of football, but I don't fancy dropping down
peeing in a bucket
levels
in the corner of Aki Stanley's changing room.
Exactly, on a cold night when I can think of other things to do. So it doesn't appeal to me personally, but everyone's different, and I think you've got to applaud someone like that. I mean, it's he's obviously not doing it for the money. It's because he loves the game, and fair play to him.
Yeah, and also, Clem, I'm assuming it helps fans as well. It helps the gate, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, it's a figure of interest. I mean, I think he's trying to get his feet under the table, and he's trying to keep a low profile. But clearly, when you're snatching a couple of penalties in the last 5 days, and sure, it's going to put bums on seats, isn't it? Without a doubt.
I want to end the whole Monday Night Club this evening with what's going to happen at Ellen Road tomorrow night, Mark.
Yeah, it'll be a year tomorrow since the death of Gary Speed at the age of just 42. Played, of course, nearly 250 times for Leeds. And the club have confirmed today they will have a minute's applause for Gary prior to their Championship home match against Leicester tomorrow night.
Thank you, Mark Clement. The Football Association of Wales has today said the following, with tomorrow being a year since Gary passed away. The statement is as follows. A year ago, we were all devastated by the news of his death. During the next 24 hours, the image of Gary outside the FAW offices will be lit up and staff will lay flowers as a mark of respect. The chief executive of the FAW, Jonathan Ford, said, "We not only lost the national team manager, we also lost a friend and a colleague. Our thoughts today, as they are every day, are with Gary's family, his wife Louise, sons Ed and Tom, his parents Roger and Carol, and his sister Leslie." Still hard to believe a year on, Robbie.
Yeah, I sent his father a text earlier. Said I was thinking about him. He replied, it means so a lot still. I always will. To Michael knew him well as well. Lived near the same village. Still can't believe it. Such a great guy, such an inspiration to those around him. It was great to me as a young boy growing up. Playing for Wales, looked after me. And such a sad loss, for his wife and his kids and his whole family, and for the footballing world. He was legend is a word used too much, and for me, Gary Speed was a legend.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. It's a year since the awful news broke. I mean, as Robbie said, I knew Gary quite well myself. I drive past his house still every day. On the way to taking my son to school, and I actually took Roger, Gary's dad, and his 2 sons to Old Trafford to watch a game in my box at the time. Soon after, I think it was the first time they'd left the house, really, a week or so after the event, and remarkable bravery by the 2 young lads, and again, I mean, everyone rallied round the Man United lads and all the rest of it, had the photos and pictures and autographs and everything else. I mean, I think the whole football world was in shock, and it's still, it still hurts when you think about it now.
It does, and our thoughts here at the BBC are, of course, with all the family and friends of Gary Speed a year on. That's the end of the Monday Night Club this evening. Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Rob. Yeah. Thank you, Robbie.
Really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Michael. Will you come back?
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah.
That's a very good. That's.
He's not going to say no on here, is he?
Well, you never know. I know some people who would. Put it out. Thank you very much to all three of you. We'll do another Monday Night Club, a mini Monday Night Club, next Monday night before Newcastle Wigan, which is the Monday night game next Monday. Full commentary on 5 Live, and tomorrow, of course, we'll be at the Stadium of Light for full commentary of Sunderland against QPR.
On digital and online.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
bbc.co.uk/5live.